Alright, and welcome back to another speed build in The Sims 4. This time I am building a community lot, and I am still using a bunch of stuff from The Sims 4 Get Together, since it's the most recent expansion pack to come out while I'm recording this. And with The Sims 4 Get Together, for those of you that don't know, it comes with this brand new world Windenburg, and a lot of it is surrounded by these really cool and intricate Tudor houses, so I still wanted to do something in that particular architecture, but this time around, since I've already done something with the Tudor style, I wanted to make something that wasn't as symmetrical and had a more crazy shape. So you'll see here I just tossed in a bunch of crazy diagonal walls everywhere, and the whole time I was doing this I was just dreading the roof because I knew for sure that the roof is going to be pretty complicated when it came around to making it. Because for those of you that have ever built your own home, you know those diagonal walls can really throw things off, but at the end I think it make it work. Now that part of the building to the very right, that is going to be the cafe, because with the expansion pack there is a new cafe venue type that you can set, and there's a bunch of new coffee and pastries that your Sims can enjoy, so I wanted to be sure to incorporate that into this community build. And the idea behind this build initially was going to be multiple different stores in one area. So I was going to have a cafe, a pub, and I was thinking of even adding in a bakery, but I decided against it and I went with two separate buildings because I ended up making the pub relatively large, but it looks really cool in the end, I want to say. And there's a lot of seating, a bunch of pub games. This lot is really great for having your Sims go out there just to have a really fun time. And again, it's supposed to have a lot of exclusive little rooms. I add in this nightclub on the second floor for your club, and it looks like something that you wouldn't expect in this build. The reason for that is because since the pub was so big, it had so much wood and all that new wooden furniture that came with this game. So I wanted the upstairs to be something completely different, and it's way more modern. It has this crazy nightclub feel to it, a lot of black with neon colors, and it ends up looking really cool. So at this point, I'm still having the idea that I'm going to have different buildings, but I end up changing the textures altogether so that they are all uniformed, because I kind of scrapped that idea midway through this build. And this is where I'm experimenting with all the different Tudor textures. There's so many that have been added into the game, so you can have a lot of variety with your Tudor houses and a lot of different colors to choose from. So this time I went with a more grayscale for the exterior, because last time I did a Tudor styled house, it was a lot more warmer with browns and these deep red brick colors. So I just wanted something a little bit more desaturated to give it more individuality. Also, I just want to mention, whenever I pan, or I should say whenever I rotate the camera and I look towards the back of the lot, for some reason on this lot, since it's so close to that wall, the camera just shoots up vertically really fast, and there was nothing I could do to avoid that. So if the camera goes really wonky for a moment, I just hope it doesn't give too many of you motion sickness or anything like that, because it was pretty intense. So finally, this is basically how the shape of the entire build remains. Nothing too crazy changes on the outside as far as the shape of the build. Obviously, I do add more walls to connect the missing sequence right there on the top floor, but I was really happy with the way that this ended up looking, especially when I go to upload it to the gallery. The thumbnail for the gallery ended up looking pretty sweet. Normally it's very hit or miss, but because I added it in on this diagonal wall, it just makes it really interesting to look at, and it's way different from any other thumbnail that I've ever had generated on my gallery. So I was really pleased about that. This is when I'm finally connecting the roofs, and at first I didn't think it was going to work, to be honest. I thought it was going to be really difficult, and I was about to scrap this entire build and start from scratch because I was getting a little antsy and I didn't think it was going to be able to be possible to combine these roofs. But I think in the end I end up making it work. So it's kind of cool seeing this all come together after I recorded it, because I kind of forget how I approach certain things. So it's kind of neat just to look back on it. Now, don't worry though. I pretty much utilize every single pixel available on this lot. I really crammed in as much stuff as I possibly could on the outside. I squeezed in a bunch of trees, bushes, including the new interactable bush. That way you can have public woohoo and also have your Sims relieve themselves outside in case the bathrooms are preoccupied. And one thing I really hope that we get this either with a patch or maybe in an expansion pack, but I really want public restroom stalls, because building bathrooms for community lots, it's so inconvenient when you have to go and make multiple little toilet rooms. And sometimes it just looks so claustrophobic because you want to have a lot of bathrooms. So sometimes you end up making these 2x1 rooms with just a toilet in them, and it looks so cramped. So I hope that we get public restroom stalls eventually, because I never realized how convenient they were. I was going to add a foundation, but I remembered you cannot put stairs on a diagonal foundation. I don't know why I forgot that. I figured it would be possible, but they've never done that in a Sims game, I don't think. So that would be another neat thing, because then you could do really awesome diagonal builds with grand staircases, and that would look so sweet. With landscaping, I wanted to toss in as much color as I could. So I put a bunch of lavender and some other flowers that were also purple, just so that it didn't look so depressing, because the entire outside is so desaturated. We really needed some more color, and adding in bushes and other outdoor furniture certainly helped with that. It made it look a lot more inviting than before. And I gotta say, with the Sims 4 Get Together, they have really outdone themselves with the amount of content that we get in buy and build mode. It's overwhelming sometimes how many new objects there are, and every time I go back, even though I've been playing with this pack for a few days now, there's still something new that I find each time that went unnoticed previously. So right there, you can see to the left, I added in that table with the purple and white umbrella. It's so adorable and perfect for any cafes that you build. There's these beautiful new, I don't know what those are exactly, just poles with flowers on them with flags. I don't know if those have an actual name, but it had so much color to it, and I loved just the idea of people walking underneath it. So I needed to toss that in there for sure. And that new outdoor bench next to the purple and white umbrella, hopefully you'll get a better shot of it soon, right there with the blue cushions. Love that chair. All of the textures and colors that are provided with it are so good. So once I added in all these outdoor furniture pieces, I like the build so much more, because it really did tie it all together, and like I said, made it more inviting. There's also that adorable little sign in front of the cafe that has like the daily specials written on it. And there's new outdoor signs for pubs and cafes to identify them. So I do toss those up eventually. That way it helps differentiate between the two different businesses that are going on in this build. So I also tossed in a bit of a little back area. I was going to just put a path out there, but then I decided it would be better to have a cute little secluded outdoorsy area, since this is part of the pub. So I guess if this was in real life, this would be where maybe if things are getting too hectic for you and you needed to break away from all the people and get a bit of breather, this would be great for that. Or for people that smoke, I guess this could be the smoking area of the business as well. Just touching up some of the textures here, trying to make sure that the paneling on the outside makes sense, because there's so many to pick from. It's a little bit overwhelming sometimes, and I just wanted to make sure that it looked kind of natural. Now here with the terrain tools, I did something different that I normally don't do, and I noticed this in a few other builds. So people, what they would do is it looked like they put the dirt texture first, and then they would put the stone on top of it. And I felt that looked way more convincing and made it look like it's actually been walked through quite a few times. So I really liked the way that looked. It looked really organic and realistic. So I hope that you guys like it too. I hope it's not too intense with the dirt. But right there's the thumbnail picture I was talking about. There was a small glimpse of it, but I'm still happy with the way that turned out. And with the sign, all the different retextures have different writing on the chalkboard. Now this is where I'm building the interior of the cafe, and I had so much fun with that. At first I was going to go with a more traditional type of cafe, and I was going to try to make it look really warm and cozy with all this wood furniture, but I ended up going way more modern. But I really like the way it looks because we have this interesting contrast between new and old. And oh, here I was struggling to find the espresso bar. They're under bars, duh. But for some reason I was thinking it was a kitchen appliance. So they have the appliances separately there, but if you're looking for this object here, it's underneath the bars category. But like I was saying, I like the contrast between these really historic buildings but being renovated and having modern furniture in it, and it looks way cooler than I anticipated. So here you can see this is where it was very early on. It looked a little bit too much like a house to those counters. They didn't look very commercial. Because I put so many counters, there really wasn't that much of a place for your Sims to sit at. I could place in maybe 2 tables if I was lucky, and that's it. And man, I did not, just looking back at this, not a fan of what I was doing here. I think I didn't like it either, so this gets a pretty big change too. But those are the new espresso items. I'm not a big coffee drinker in real life though, so I guess I can't appreciate it as much as other people, I guess, but I've always loved the smell of coffee. That's something that I absolutely love. Waking up in the morning and smelling it in the air, it's such a great scent. But as far as actually drinking it, not a fan. So this is where I went way more modern, literally just because of those chairs that I placed down. Those chairs are perfection. I just love them so much. The shape of them, the color, everything about them is so good. So I had to use those instead. With coffee shops, I feel, well, there's 2 ways to go about it. Obviously, there's all the people that take it to go and they're on a hurry to go somewhere else. But coffee shops tend to be a great social gathering place and where a lot of people just go to hang out for a while. So I wanted to be sure to accompany all that space so your Sims could sit and chit chat with one another. There's that really cool new wall decoration that I put on that wall to the left. It's kind of hard to see right now, but it looked perfect and it seemed like that was an object intended for cafes because it has all these really antique frames and it looked very hip and cool. So I definitely wanted to toss that in here. So I just really like the way this cafe ended up looking. I don't know why, but it just, I was very proud of the interior on this particular part of the build. Those stained glass windows with the brand new chairs, and once I tossed up these cool new flags, there's a whole bunch of different kinds. So there's ones that are just decorative for like pubs and everything, and then there's these ones which you can customize to represent your club. So this is where I started to get the idea to really make this a area that was going to be specifically for a club, and I wanted to toss in a few exclusive little areas throughout this community lot. That rug, I use that rug so much. It's one of the smaller rugs and I just sized it up and it has my favorite pattern on it. If I ever find a rug like that in real life, I would totally buy it in an instant because I love it so much. So I noticed right away that I did not have any bathrooms at all. Not a single restroom. And I've had the mistake way too much in the past where I finish a residential, or not residential, where I finish a community lot and then I realize when it's too late that I forgot the bathrooms. So I'm like, okay, I need to have this obviously because Sims need to be able to go pee somewhere. So that was my first thing in mind when going to the pub. Since the cafe, I couldn't squeeze in a restroom there because of the lot size. So I'm like, okay, well, the pub can just have a whole bunch of different restrooms instead. and I guess it'll work out that way. Another reason I want bathroom stalls is because I end up making the bathrooms literally 100% exactly the same. I feel like the toilets and the sinks and everything has to be in the same position, because otherwise, if it's not, to me, it just looks kind of odd. And I just don't like how repetitive it is. So if I could just have one box room with like 3 bathroom stalls, then I would love that so much more. It just seems like that would make so much more sense. And I mean, it's been a year since The Sims 4 has been out, so I just hope we get bathroom stalls eventually. This video, I don't want it to be me just, begging for things that we don't have, but seriously, I would appreciate those so much. These came with the expansion pack. It's this gigantic bar display. There's so many bottles, but what's cool about it is that there is a mirror on the back of all of the bottles. It gives it this really nice presentation, and that's totally how bars are in real life. They are just stacked from the floor to the ceiling with bottles on display. So I needed to have that in this build without a doubt. And I did struggle here because I used a bar from the base game. That way I could have it go with counters. That way you can make the bar seem so much more grand. We did get a new bar in this expansion pack, but we don't have a new wooden counter to extend it and make it look cooler. So I was a little disappointed about that, but it's okay because we have plenty of bars from the base game that have matching countertops. So I went with one of the more classier looking ones and made it super big. I was gonna toss in an arcade machine, but I felt it stood out way too much, especially with all the decor surrounding the first floor. It just seems so out of place. I really wanted a exclusive game area over here, but instead kind of made it more like a very secretive kind of club gathering meeting, almost like an office space. It's just, the room was so big here, I needed something to separate it, so I just tossed this in, and this is one of the exclusive club areas. It's not as cool and hip as the super cool club that I built on the second floor, but it's still a nice little location where you and your club members can go gather there to go and drink your coffee or alcohol in peace from the rest of all the other people that are on the lot. And I did still toss in some dartboards and foosball tables. That way they had something else to do and just kind of make it seem a little bit cooler. Now that rug that I just placed there, that is another one of those club rugs. So you can retexture them. Well, you don't retexture them, I'm sorry. You recolor them with a design tool, and you can make it so that it has your club symbol on them. So you could also hire another person to work at this bar. That way they can serve maybe exclusive drinks to your club, I guess, if you want to kind of get that into it. So then I move on back to the main portion of the pub, and then you'll see where I'm talking about where I extend the bar with the countertops. It's a little frustrating on diagonal buildings because they don't automatically snap next to your bar like they do if they weren't diagonal. So I use the Alt button to be able to precisely place them wherever I want, in case you never knew how to do that. And if you've seen people build before where they can just place objects wherever they want on the grid, you just hold down Alt and it lets you do that. So I tried to be as precise as possible. It's not perfect, but I figure it looks as good as it's gonna get. And by the end of it all, I was pretty happy with the way it looked, all tuckered away in the corner over there. And after doing this build, I think I want to try to incorporate diagonal walls a bit more. They're so fun to do, and they're a little bit challenging at times when it comes to the roof and even decorating, but I think the end result is totally worth it. Here I'm adding a bunch of new seating. Those are some new dividers that have been added with the pack too, and it helps break up the space so much. I was going to use half walls, but these were so much better. They have that really cool glass between it too, and I tossed in some more of that club rugs throughout the entire build just to really show off that club pride. Love those banners and flags and emblems, rugs, the hats and the jackets. you can really represent your clubs and be super proud about them, which is so neat. At this point, the textures were super repetitive, so I just tossed in some random wood paneling here and there just to break it up a bit, and then I tossed in some columns to make the transition look a little bit more natural. Oh, here's another tip for you. In case you did not know, you can place triangle tiles, which is very handy when building on diagonal builds. I believe it's with Control F. That is what you press to toggle between square and diagonal triangle placement of floor tiles. And it's not only useful for diagonal builds, but also like if you're doing a courtyard and you want to add more detail and add different textures, just do Control F and you'll get more precise movement of where you want to place different tiles and do really awesome patterns. So highly recommend that you try that out sometime. Now here, this is what I was talking about, where the bathrooms just looked way too repetitive because I feel like they have to all be the same. So I got rid of the third bathroom here and made it 2 larger restrooms instead because it just looked way better that way in my opinion. And this is where I squeezed in the staircase because I had no idea where else to place it. But we don't go to the upstairs just yet. It's just before I started furnishing the rest of the build, I wanted to be sure to squeeze in the staircase, and oh man, I want new stairs so bad. I really do. If you've ever seen my Let's Plays before, you know I'm a huge fan of spiral staircases. I don't think that there's anything else that could look so much better in a house than a spiral staircase. There's something about them that are just so cool and they save on space so much, and I can't wait until we get some in The Sims 4. Ooh, you know what else would be cool? Since we have these really freaking tall walls now that we can build in The Sims 4, you know, we have the short walls, medium walls, and tall walls. With the tall walls, sometimes it's a little bit awkward because the staircases are massive and they're just going one direction. So if we can get those L-shaped staircases in The Sims 4 for the really tall walls, that would make it so much better. And that's how my old house used to be. Our front of our house was really grand. The walls were super tall and we had a staircase in an L shape, and it was really cool going up it because you could look down on the first floor and it just looked really pretty. So I would love to be able to recreate stuff like that in The Sims 4. I was having a bit of a challenging time here decorating the rest of the pub because I was looking at it and I was thinking to myself, well, really, what else can I add? I'm like, I already have my bar, I have a television and some seating. So I guess when in doubt, just add more seating. I was gonna put a DJ booth, but I felt it just looked way too out of place. So once I just started adding in more tables and more chairs, it looked a lot better. And I don't know why it took me so long to realize this, but as I was looking at this at one point, I'm like, why does this look so brown? I'm like, it's too brown. I need more color. It has Gears of War syndrome. It just needs something else. So I finally remembered that plants exist because duh, I placed a whole bunch of plants outside. So you can definitely add more color to any build with indoor plants. I don't know why it took me so long to add them, but once I add in a bunch of little potted plants around this build, it looks more welcoming for sure. Because right now I just felt like it looked too blah and way too monochromatic with just the brown everywhere. Also, the club flags help out a lot too. And I love the fact that the coffee one incorporated red into it, so I felt that tied nicely with the rest of the room. Unfortunately, like, you can pick what club symbol you want, but the colors are predetermined for you. Just one of the few little setbacks from The Sims 4 because we don't get to pick our own color. So it would have been kind of cool to go beyond just a symbol and also being able to pick our own like kind of club colors. But at least the colors that they pick are really nice and are great with one another, since a lot of them are contrasting colors anyways, and those always work great together. That's why a lot of sports teams are like that too. They just look really nice. And then we're adding the second floor here finally. And at first, I didn't know what I was going to do for the second floor because I'm like, I already have everything I need on the first floor, so what the hell am I going to do? But that's when I got the idea. I'm like, well, the entire build doesn't have to look so historic and doesn't have to suit the whole Tudor style. In fact, it'd be kind of cool to have something really unexpected. And I had a lot of space to play with on the second floor. I mean, when you strip away all the walls and all the objects, you can see that this build is kind of big. So I tossed in the biggest dance floor that I could find at one point, and then that's when I got the idea to really build a nightclub area. There's so many awesome dance floors in this expansion pack. So of course there's the really popular see-through glass dance floor, but don't forget about the other dance floors. So we have a very simplistic one with this sort of like marble texture to it, which is great for more subtle clubs, maybe some more elegant ones that you want to make. And then I replaced that club dance floor with this really bold neon colored dance floor that pops out in a fantastic way. I did bring in a sim, so I saved and then I bring in a sim soon because you can't change the lights in buy mode. So I needed to bring a sim, that way I could see these new lights, and they're so cool. They project these cute little squares and all these different shapes and colors, and they give it way more of a nightlife look to it. And when I build my nightclubs, I like to be able to see my sims and what they're doing. Some people I think misinterpreted what I said in my Let's Play once because I was like, this nightclub is too dark, I can't see anything. And yeah, that's how nightclubs are, I understand that. But I'm talking from a gameplay perspective. When I'm playing a video game, I want to be able to see what my sims are doing. Like in that part, it doesn't have to be super realistic. Like I want to see the animations. I want to see their faces. Don't you? I mean, we spend all these hours in Create a Sim going over every single detail, whether they're going to wear high heels, if they're going to wear their earrings or necklaces, how they wear their hairstyle when they go out to a club, what colors they're going to wear with their clubs, you know, which correlating outfits they're going to have. So I want to see that. If I'm spending all this time arranging all of this crap, like I better have good lighting, and I need those good lighting for those selfies in the game too, because otherwise it's just not very flattering and you can't see anything. So it doesn't matter if nightclubs in real life are super dark. In my game, I'm going to have ample lighting. Everyone's always going to look good. There's going to be selfie galore on every single angle that you're looking at. So that's what I went in with this part of the club. I just put a bunch of lights everywhere and I changed them though. So there's just this awesome gradient from light blue to dark purple, and it gives this awesome look for photographs of your Sims once they're at this part of the venue. This is the little residential area, so I guess you could pretend this is kind of where like the club owner would reside possibly. And I just wanted a place where your Sims could sleep, freshen up. That way they could stay at this venue for a much longer time and really enjoy their time here, because it's so much fun hanging out with all your club members. So I basically wanted to make sure that they had everything they needed here to stay here as long as they wanted. And of course I tossed in a closet and a bed. That way if your Sim wants to woohoo with someone else that they met at this lot, then they can do it somewhere privately, or they can go to the back, and if they have no shame, just go and woohoo in the bush. It's all up to how you want to play the game, of course. Here I was trying to add in more than one toilet, but I figured it didn't really matter. And also I noticed a little bit later that the bathroom in the club just didn't make much sense, right? It had very conflicting styles, because the bathroom next to the club there, it was still going off the Tudor style architecture, so I made it way more modern looking. I was okay with the bedroom kind of having a more traditional look though. When it comes to the nightclub, like I said, it's just I wanted it to be something that you wouldn't expect from this building, something that has a very VIP access to, something that's not open to the public and only a few people know about. So that was sort of the whole idea behind it. And because I had so much space to play with on the walls in the nightclub area, there's so many new wall decorations for clubs. There's all these new posters, graffiti. So I layered a whole bunch of different graffiti and these really hip posters throughout the top floor. There's also a bar up there too. That way your Sims can get more exclusive drinks up there. Added in a bunch more fun wall decorations that just had more color. Here are some of the graffiti and posters that I was talking about. And of course, all of them have different colors, so you can mix and match them and spread them throughout. And I'm so happy that with Get Together, it wasn't only Tudor style houses. And I thought it was going to be when I first saw Windenburg, and I was kind of dreading it a little bit. But I ended up really embracing Windenburg. I really like the Tudor style architecture now that I've seen it in the game. I think, part of me really wanted to build a nightclub anyways, so this was my way of kind of getting away with it. I think my next build, I'm going to do a nightclub, and I want to go and make it super vibrant, give it all this cool blues and purples, and just make it like a really awesome place to go and hang out. So I think when I go and build the nightclub, the interior will probably look a little bit something more similar to this. Though when I went to Creators Camp earlier this year, I did a nightclub that was very much surrounded by water, and I was inspired by the nightclub in The Sims 3 Late Night. I think it was called Aquarius, where it was the same idea. It was a nightclub that incorporated a lot of pools and everything. So I want to do that with The Sims 4. This is when I remove that dance floor and replace it with the one I was talking about earlier. Absolutely love it. Just love all of the new objects in this expansion pack. I can't praise it enough. If you are someone that loves to build in The Sims 4, if you're doubting whether you should get together or not, simply for the buying and building purposes, I highly recommend it, because like I said, there's so many different styles that they cater to. There's the Tudor styled furniture and textures. There's the very urban and cool club hangout type of areas that you can build. Then there's also very regal looking furniture too. If you're someone that really likes to make big mansions and everything, so many objects in this expansion pack really accommodate that stuff too. At this point, the build is practically done. I'm just going around and adding some more fine little details with the terrain textures, doing more landscaping, changing some of the wall textures, adding more to the hallway, putting a whole bunch of vines and giving it this more green on the outside. But that's basically the end of this community lot build. I hope you enjoyed this build, and I'll see you all next time.